Hello, everyone. I need to get my bearings together. I am having quite the morning. It's just super busy here. I just want to make sure that my notes are working and everything is together. I hope everyone's having very happy Friday. Welcome. Hi, here on Coffee with Dari Live, which I am now turning into a podcast, which is super exciting for me. But welcome. Today on Coffee with Dari Live, we're talking about three principles to your strategy that will help it stand the test of time. And I thought this was a really important subject because I feel like a lot of people who are teaching social media strategy, brand strategy, and all these things in order to, and no disrespect, no hate, but in order for them to have a business and to sell things, sometimes they lean on teaching kind of just what's working right now. So it might be how to edit your reels a certain way, how to beat the algorithm. And of course, I've put out content like that as well. But one big difference between what other people teach and what I teach is that I'm teaching you strategies and structures that work no matter what happens in the industry. And that's because the way I've put together my strategies are based on timeless marketing principles. And timeless marketing principles are timeless because they are based more in, I want to say, psychology and human behavior and how they think. And so I wanted to share with you the top three things. And it's actually more than three, because as I was writing this list out, I just had so much more to share. So here are the things that help your strategies, whether that's social media or just brand strategy. Here are the main focus points that will help you stand the test of time, right? So we're going to start with the main one. And if you don't remember anything else, this is what I want you to walk away with today is that people will always be the most interested in what you can do for them, right? They're looking at you and they're saying, what can you do for me? What's in it for me? And we have to keep that in mind because I think we're excited about our businesses, we're excited about our offers, we want to help people. And so you can get a little blindsided and thinking, okay, these are all the cool things about my business, about my offer, about my product. But when we talk about it, we forget to put it through the lens of the customer and really ask ourselves, what is this doing for them? What do they get out of it? Because that's all you care about. Think about it when you're scrolling through Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you spend time. When you're doing that, you are thinking to yourself, why should I follow this person? Why should I care about what they have to say? So ask yourself those questions when you're putting together your strategies, your social media strategies, your brand strategies, all that. That's the first thing. The next thing I'm going to say is that structure is going to equal consistency, but it also equals freedom. Structure equals consistency, but it also equals freedom. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we forget about having a plan. And that's why people get overwhelmed. That's why people find themselves with not knowing what to post. It happens to all of us. Sometimes we just have creative blocks. But when you give yourself a structure and a plan, this also helps for people, my entrepreneurs out there who get the shiny object syndrome and want to be doing the next thing. When you give yourself a structure and a plan, you kind of put blinders on. And you have to give that plan time to work. And if you just execute on your plan, you're not going to get distracted by all the things that are happening around you, right? Because we all know social media changes so quickly every day, all the time. First, it's carousels. No, now reels work. Oh, no, post pictures. And you have to show up in stories. A great way to block out the noise is just to focus on your plan, focus on the structure you have put together. And structure works with everything. Even when it comes to content planning, when I work with clients, I like to figure out when we can set time aside in their schedule for them to focus on just creating content. And that structure leads to freedom because within that structure, then once you start to get things under your belt, once you start to get things in a process, then you have opportunities. Your brain kind of frees up, right? Because everything starts to go on autopilot. It's like going to the gym. You get the first time you go, you need to work on how you're doing the exercise, being intentional about focusing on certain muscle groups. But then after a while, it just becomes second nature. So you can focus on other things. Same thing with your social media strategy, your brand strategy. Once the process is in place and going, then your brain starts to open up. You can get ideas. You can start to do things different ways. There's room to play within the structure. And that's kind of my favorite part, that when that shift happens, is one of my favorite parts because that's when the creativity really comes through and when things start to feel a lot lighter. So your structure will equal consistency, but it will also equal freedom, creativity, and all the fun parts. The next thing I want to talk about, I'm going to do these quickly. The next thing I want to talk about is to always work backwards and reverse engineer your strategies. And this is where all those pieces where we learn to get clear on our goals, to get clear on our audience, to get clear on the platforms that we're going to use, that's where working backwards works in your favor because it's much easier to figure out a route to where you're going when you know where you're going, right? You don't just like hop on the subway or you get in your car and just randomly go somewhere, right? You go with the intention to get to a certain place. And once you know where you're going, then you can map out the route that works for you, whether you want to get there the fastest, or maybe you want to make some stops along the way, get food, whatever it is. Having that end destination helps you figure out all the pieces in between. And so that's why I'm really, really always focused on reverse engineering everything that you're doing. And with reverse engineering, goals is always where you want to start. And then you can bring in the other elements. That's when you talk about, okay, if this is what I want to do, then how do I reach the people? What do they care about? What are they interested in? What can I do for them? And that's when all the pieces kind of start to fall together or meld, or I don't know, however else you want to think about putting things together or things coming together. Okay. So, and then the next thing I want to talk about. So, those are the top three. Remember that people want to know what's in it for them. That is the biggest question that they have for you. They don't care about anything else, pretty much. Just what's in it for them. People are selfish. People are self involved. It's not a bad thing. It's just the way we're built. What's in it for you? Your structure is going to equal consistency, work backwards. And then the next thing I have to talk about is to track patterns so that you can repeat what's working. Okay. And tracking patterns so you can repeat goes into analytics. And that's why I love analytics so much because if I see something's not working, I'm not going to waste time doing it. I want to double down on the things that actually are working. And you're not going to know what's working until you are paying attention and you are tracking the patterns and you're seeing this thing works, that thing works. My audience likes when I use videos. My audience responds when I ask this type of question. And those small details are what's going to push you to the next level. Doubling down on what works is what gets you more momentum. It will get you more engagement, it will get you more growth, and that applies for pretty much anything, right? So when we concentrate on what we can repeat that's successful and stop wasting time on the things that don't, that's where success lies. And all of these principles all work together in order to make you successful, move you closer to your goals. The last thing I want to talk about, see, it was more than three, we're up to five, is to have a little bit of flexibility within your structure and embrace trends. And by trends, I don't mean like the latest song that's getting people views or things like that. I'm talking about fundamental trends. Like, for example, Instagram was a photo platform. If that was your platform of choosing, that's what you were on there for. Now we have shifted the focus to reels, and not just reels, but also carousels are doing well on there. So, how do you adjust to those changes? Right. Also, another thing I will say on Instagram, before we were chasing likes. We wanted people to like our content. We wanted people to maybe leave a comment. But I've been talking about this for a long time, and there is such a big shift in how people use social media. We're getting overwhelmed by messages. We're following more people than ever before. There's more content out there than there ever was before. And each day, it's just more, 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 more. We're getting bombarded by messages. So there has to be a point where people get overwhelmed. And I think we're hitting it. And I've been talking about this since like 2019 because there's just too much information. There's too much information out there, and people are getting lazier and lazier by the day. Again, no offense to anyone, but whenever you add an extra thing people need to do, they're going to fall away. So, what's happening now? What we're seeing is that people might be just scrolling past things. They're not even liking things as much anymore. So, what is Instagram doing? They're favoring saves and shares because that's how people seem to be interacting with content that they really find engaging, is that they're sharing it. They're like, "Hey, look at this. I found this interesting." So when it comes to flexibility, right? Let's loop it back to that. From a photo platform where we were chasing likes to a flat platform that's now prioritizing shares and saves. That's going to change the amount of effort that you need to put in, right? Because a like is a passive thing. You need to have that flexibility to say, okay, I need to do more, or I need to do things differently in order to achieve this new goal, in order to have my business grow. Is it annoying? Yes. But that is just the way the world is working. And that's what we need to adjust to. So, how can you embrace changes? Maybe that's what I've suggested instead. How can you embrace changes while still sticking to your structure? Because again, fundamentally, humans who you are dealing with as a marketer don't change that much. I mean, certain behaviors change, but something like being interested in what you can do for them, that's very fundamental. That is not going to change. It's something that people are always going to look for. So that is what I've always leaned on when it comes to creating strategies. It's basing it in marketing principles that have not changed in decades because we are dealing with humans. So have the structure, but also once you have the structure, be flexible within there. And that's what I teach my students. Candace is here. She's taking some of my courses. And I have to say, one of my favorite books is The Alchemist. And it's one of my favorites because no matter where I am in my life, if I reread it, it's a whole different angle. And I can pull even more things from it. And that's how I feel my courses, my information is structured. And no matter where you are in the point of your business, you can always come back if you need a refresher. And I'm not teaching you what's working right now. I am, but the core of my business is teaching you things that are going to help you in the long run and make your business stand out, have your social media strategies stand out in the long run and not just right now. It's good to know the right now, of course. Of course. Of course you need to know what's happening now. For example, like Instagram favoring shares and saves. But at the core of it, good content is good content, bad content is bad content. People are not going to interact with you if your content is bad. But you need to know what to prioritize in order to get your content out to the right people. So I hope that's not too confusing. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I'm more than happy to answer them while I'm here. Yay, I'm so happy you could join me, Candace. Candace says, my favorite technique of yours is work backwards. Yeah, It hasn't failed me yet. And I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of fluctuations, a lot of shifting. It just happens all the time. Yes, Candace, ask your question. Ask away. I'll wait for you to type it in. But yes, these are the printables. Okay, so Candace says, when I feel inspired in creating content. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And I'm from the camp of both because I, for my clients, I always have to plan ahead of time because obviously this is my work and this is, we need to have structure or else the wheels fall off. So Candace is saying, I work when I feel inspired creating content. When I try to plan it, it feels less authentic and more draining. But she wants structure. She needs help with balance. So what I would do there, Candace, and I know you've taken the build your brand on Instagram or build your social media. Forget what it's called. I need to relaunch that. Anyway, um, what I would say is create as much content as you can when you're inspired. And then that way you can build it out and roll it out slowly. My other suggestion is, and I'm sorry if you're hearing the sirens. I'm not sure that my mic is picking that up or not. Okay. Um, Sorry, I am distracted by the sirens. My other suggestion is to can you set time aside? Maybe you're not feeling super inspired, but maybe subjects that get you inspired. And then you can create content that way. A third suggestion is if you're selling something, so Candace does energy readings, and Candace, correct me if I'm wrong if you're not doing that anymore. But she does energy readings. Oh, hi, Michelle. No sirens. Okay, thank you. It was so distracting for me. Um, Distracted again. Okay. Candace does energy readings, card pulling, things like that. So, Candace, if you're selling a specific service offer, I would I feel like you launch your offers when you're inspired. So take advantage of that time. And while you're building that offer and while you're feeling inspired, put time aside to actually create the content, like brain dump it. I've seen you do it before. Brain dump and just get all the subjects out of your mind while you're in that creative mode and create content. And then she says, "Do I have to change my outfit though?" I would suggest yes. If you are blocking out time to create content, I do suggest you change your outfit every couple videos. But it's a great way when you batch things, and that goes back to structure. If you get in the habit of, okay, on every third Friday of the month, I'm going to set 2 hours aside to take my offer and see what I can pull from it and get creative. I think it becomes, like I said, it becomes like going to the gym. It becomes like something that you just get used to. And you're like, oh, these are my creative days. That doesn't mean that we won't feel inspired sometimes, but at least when you batch the content while you're inspired, you can roll it out on those moments when you don't feel inspired. I hope that helps. Okay, so that is all for me today. I like to keep these short and to the point because beyond teaching you strategies that actually work in the long run, I also don't like wasting your time. So, a quick recap. Um, oh, actually, another question came in. Do I like to schedule out or post organically? For me personally, it's a mix of both. And for clients, sometimes it happens that way as well. I schedule as much as I can. And then, for example, if I have a client who it makes sense to hop on one of the trends that's happening online, then we'll integrate that in. But at least we know that we have a base from which to work with, that we're consistently showing up for the audience. So it gives us again that structure with the room to play if something does come up, and then we can move things. And yeah, I hope that helps. Okay, you're so welcome. Okay, so let's recap quickly what I talked about today. Remember that people only care about what's in it for them, and that's probably never going to change. So as long as you root your content into what's in it for my audience and you take yourself out of it, what's in it for my audience? How can I help them? How does my offer help them? How is this relevant to them? You probably will not have that issues coming up with content or what to say or converting. The next is that structure will equal consistency and freedom. So always have a plan. Work backwards and reverse engineer your strategy. So get super clear on your goals, super clear on your customers, super clear on what platforms you want to use and how they work, and string all the pieces together that way. And the last one is to track patterns so you can repeat the things that work and not waste time on the things that do not work. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you create strategies. So those are principles that will future proof your brand strategies, your social media strategies, rooted in principles of marketing that have proven to always be relevant. Okay. Because the little TikTok dance that's trending right now is not going to work for you a year from now. And I don't want to see you in that position. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you on the next Coffee with Dari Live. If you have any questions in between, feel free to DM me. I am at Darilo, Darilo on Instagram and Threads. And you can also catch me on LinkedIn. But thank you all so much for spending some time on your Friday morning with me, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.